It's another season review episode for Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking Hunter McKown. Can he make his mark in the NHL? Will Joonas Luoto be with the team this October? And what the heck is going on with Sergei Bobrovsky, and how awesome is it to see? We're talking about all of that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, with my co-host, Hayden Heilshorn. We are here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube and also Sirius XM. So, if you haven't listened on the radio before, then you can do that now, which is super, super awesome. Let's jump right into this, Hayden. We are going to continue our season reviews of every player who put on a Blue Jackets jersey this season, all 48 of them, I believe, which is too many, but that's beside the point. Let's talk about Hunter McKown, who was a college free agent signing, who came pretty highly touted. He had a lot of interest from a lot of different teams. And had himself not a bad little season debut. He had, I believe, 8 games at the end of the season, 12 games actually. So let's start off. What most impressed you about McKown's game from the 12 games that we saw at the end of the season?
What most impressed me about his game is that he got a point in his first game. That's pretty much it, and then he was flatlined after that. So not much production on the ice from the Blue Jackets perspective. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of this guy really at all, unless you were deep diving, paying attention to every single shift at the end of the season last year, which I think a lot of Blue Jackets fans, maybe forced themselves to do because you were rooting for losses. But he didn't do much on the ice, not from what I noticed. So I just look back at kind of who he is as a guy and where he's from. He was born and raised, I believe, in San Jose, spent a lot of time in his youth, at least in San Jose, and then spent some time with the St. Louis AAA program or St. Louis Junior program. Just some formative years was spent out there, and then went to Colorado College and spent some years out there, averaged like half a point a game, I think, in a couple seasons out in Colorado College, and now he's with the Jackets. So it's crazy the journey he's been on. And he said he had a few options once he was done and went undrafted and chose the Blue Jackets. And I'm excited that he's here. It seems like he has a good attitude. And yeah, I mean, again, we haven't seen a lot of him. He's just the 12 games, but
this guy feels like all potential to me. Mm-hmm. Like you say, he didn't do a ton with the time he got at the end of the season. I just checked his ice time, and it varied wildly. So his lowest ice time was 6:35. He played against Ottawa, and then his highest ice time was actually 17:24 that he played in the last game of the season against Buffalo. I like him. Like I said, I like him as potential. And what I also liked about this is I want to pull up a comment that we got on YouTube, which I hadn't thought about, but really liked. So give me 1 second while I do that. But to me, Hunter McKown is not going to move the needle in a massive way for this team, I don't think. But it gives them versatility with their depth. And okay, here it is. Troy Noak, who comments on the videos all the time. Shout out to Troy. I think last year was great because we were able to experiment with every prospect in our system in the NHL. It will make trading for a veteran defenseman a little easier for management since they have a better understanding of the status of development for players in our prospect pool, which I thought was a really interesting thing and is something that I hadn't considered when we're talking about these guys that got, between 2 and 15 games. Like, basically everyone that was signed to a Blue Jackets contract this season that was playing pro, played pro. I think the only players that didn't suit up for the Blue Jackets that had contracts were guys like Delval Blues, who is still in juniors, and Dumais, who is still in juniors. They'd signed their entry-level contracts, but they haven't begun yet. So lots of lots of looks at lots of different prospects. Did Hunter McKown massively impress me? Not necessarily, but he has the look of someone who could become kind of an Eric Robinson type player, of someone who probably is going to spend most of his career, if not all his career, on the third line or below. But I don't know. Maybe this is the eye test in me talking, because I hate being the eye test guy, but he looked good on the ice. Didn't get many points, only 2 points in 12 games, both assists, but it just seems like the potential feels really high there, and it's basically no risk because it's a free agent signing. You don't give anything up for him. You sign him for, 2 years, I think his contract is, or 3 years. If you don't like him, then you don't have to do anything with him. And I believe, let me just double check that I am correct in saying this, but because he is an undrafted free agent, I believe he will be a UFA at the end of this contract.
Can I say one thing about him? I like that. In an interview I listened on the Inside Edge with Bob McGilligan and Jody Shelley, one that he was on at the end of the season, or near the end of the season, excuse me, at the start of his run. He had just played one game and was getting ready to play, I think, like Montreal, New York, and Boston all on the road in those 3 big hockey arenas. So go check out that interview from earlier this season, hearing him talk about just how excited he kind of was playing in those big buildings as his first few NHL games. But apparently he skates. He knows Zach Werenski pretty well. He's used to skate with him a lot in the offseason up in Michigan. He knows Blankenberg a little bit. He skated with him a couple times. So I think he knows some of the players well just from playing college hockey. Like, I think that's one thing that goes underrated when you look at college hockey players and them coming from NCAA, is that there's kind of a little fraternity there. And so I think he has that. It's weird to think about Zach Werenski as like an older brother to like all these guys, like, Kent Johnson, Blankenberg, and McKown, but that's kind of what he is in the locker room at this point. But so that's cool. So he's got friends, I guess, with the team. And like I said, he spent some time in St. Louis in his AAA days, and maybe even probably played some games in the chiller ice rinks. Those teams are always traveling back and forth, and there's always big tournaments going on. So he wants to be in the Midwest. Columbus is a perfect place for that. There's not millions. It feels like millions of people that come over from California every single year and live in Columbus. So yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a good fit from the outside looking in. He just really hasn't sparked, I don't think, yet in his hockey career, if that makes sense, Jay. But he's only 20, so that's where it's like there's so much potential there, and he has been around a lot of good hockey talent at this age because he's played with the U.S. national team, I believe, a little bit as well. So there's potential, there's upside. I don't know what his ceiling is. Probably not a top 6 guy, maybe bottom 6, but hey, the Jackets are always looking for centers, and this guy kind of looks at himself as that big unit center down the middle. So
exactly, if you can get 10 goals out of this guy, that feels like a win. If you can get 10 goals a season out of a guy like Hunter McKown, like, that feels like a win. Let's finish off. Let's give him a letter grade, and then we'll move on to another guy who, again, didn't get a ton of ice time, but is a potential piece down the road. So again, it's really tough to give these guys grades when they played literally like an hour and a half worth of hockey. Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna give him a C+, just because, again, I liked what I saw from him away from the puck, but I do think that we need to start seeing a little bit more offense from him. In terms of, I'm also gonna go ahead and give him credit for, where is it? Having a face-off percentage of 55%.
That is big props for that. You always
shout out to this guy for being one of 2.5 players that can win a face-off on this team. So I'm gonna give him a C+ for potential and face-offs. How about you?
I was gonna give him a C just because I didn't remember. He didn't stick out to me those last few games of the season. He got a point, but just because of what you said with the face-off percentage, I'll say C+. I'll agree, right down the middle with you. I kind of want to give out a D here at some point, Jay. I feel like since I've been on, we've been giving out a lot of like
I know.
A's,
I
B's,
always
and
feel
C's,
bad
but
giving the players bad grades because I'm
yeah,
like, but they tried really hard.
yes, yes.
I'm
But
sure
C
looking at
plus is good
the
for him. That means he got in right at C, and then he went up a little bit in that short
yeah.
period. So he's got he's on the right trajectory, I guess, but still a lot unproven with him.
Yeah, looking at some of the players coming up in our player reviews, I'm sure there's going to be some Ds that we hand out at some point, but it will
I
not
can't
be
wait.
for Hunter McKown. So let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Joonas Luoto, who I'm not going to lie, is a guy I forgot about until he got called up by the Blue Jackets. So we're going to do that in just a minute. But first, I've got to tell you all about eBay Motors, because a championship team needs every player to be a perfect fit. And it's the same thing when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. All you have to do is add your ride to My Garage, look for the green check to know the part will fit, or you're going to get your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you're going to be back in the game in no time. It's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to US customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets as we continue our player reviews. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We're going to be talking about whether the Blue Jackets could potentially land Auston Matthews to be their center of the future. But right now, we're going to talk about a guy who is definitely not Auston Matthews, but could still have some value to this team. Joonas Luoto spent the bulk of his season with the Monsters. He had 25 points in 45 games for them, had 1 goal in 7 games with the Blue Jackets, and spent most of his time before that in Finland. So he doesn't have a ton of NHL experience. I think he has, if I could do math on the fly, 23 NHL games of experience right now. And before this season, he had 29 games of AHL experience. So this is not a guy with a ton of mileage. He's 25 years old. At 25, I think I would like my prospect to have more than, what did I say, 23 games of NHL experience, you know?
Yeah. This guy's started out his career with Manitoba, which is in the Winnipeg system. So, which is funny because that's where he was there the same time Laine was there. And so they're good friends. They even are from the same hometown, which is cool. Seems like a lot of people in the hockey world from Finland are from that city. I'm not familiar
Hockey
with
is the
Finland as
smallest
well.
world in the entire world, is the thing.
That's true. That's true.
I love playing 6 degrees of hockey player because you usually need like 2 and then you're done.
Yeah, so he's friends with Laine, which is cool. He produced somewhat last year with the Monsters. Just off the dome, I think it was like 24 points and 40 something odd games. So that's something. He had 14 goals. That's something. He's not scoring every single night in the AHL, but he's also not being quiet. You know, he's making some noise with Cleveland. He is only 25. I say only 25, but that is kind of old. That's older. That's 5 years older than the guy that we just graded. So put that in perspective in terms of what this guy's upside can be. It's not. It's definitely not a top 6. That's past for him. I might not even be a top 9, Jay. Like this guy could scratch the lineup here this season, and he could do some damage. I'm not gonna say he can't. A guy producing like that in the AHL that can certainly translate. But again, I haven't seen a whole lot. You'd think by now it would have, blossomed a lot more. It hasn't yet for this guy. But he had a goal in a game this year. It was the grittiest goal. It was a very gritty. Sean Crowley carried it all the way to the crease, just basically charged the goalie. Don't know how it didn't get goaltender interference.
Extremely Sean Corrali.
Yes.
Turn of events.
Yes, and like nobody was trying. You know, the Devils already wrapped up their playoff spot, and Corrales just bulldozing the net, and then Luoto just comes in and just he just hit it in with something. I don't know what. It was the grittiest goal of all time. But I like that. That is helpful this time of the year when you're on deep playoff runs. You need those guys that are just gonna dive headfirst into plays like that. So if that's the energy he has, that is going to be an advantage to him. He's probably going to need that in order to stick out amongst the Monsters team that has shown to have a lot of skill and a lot of talent already. But he is doing something in Cleveland, which I like to see.
Yeah. I guess my question with Luoto is, and I've kind of been going back to this as I, look at who could be on the Blue Jackets next season. Does he, where is he in the depth chart? If I pull, where is it? Here it is. My list. So my top 13 players, or my top 13 forwards for the Blue Jackets: Johnny Gaudreau, Patrick Laine, Jack Roslovic, Boone Jenner, Sean Corrali, Eric Robinson, Matthew Olivier, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, Emil Bemstrom, Igor Chinikov, Cole Sillinger. That to me is the top. They are the top 13 forwards for this team. Does Joonas Luoto outperform any of those guys? No. And you could argue and talk about, well, Olivier might not be here next season. Jack Roslovic might get traded. Will Bemstrom manage to stick in the NHL? Will Chinikov make it back up from the AHL? There's a bunch of moving pieces. Will Cole Sillinger make it back up from the AHL? But to me, Joonas Luoto feels like a guy that, and we kind of talked about this with, who was it? I believe it was Justin Richards. A guy that is going to kill it in the AHL and be ready to play in the NHL if needed. Joonas Luoto's ceiling to me feels like guy that can play 10 to 20 NHL games a season and not be a liability, which is not a very high ceiling, but is definitely still a ceiling,
Yeah, no, that's a fine ceiling for this guy. I mean, clearly he's just looking at this point to be a full-time NHL player. If he could be a half-time NHL player, I'm sure he'll take that right now. We know those NHL checks probably a lot bigger than those AHL checks. So he's been scrapping for a few years, and he's hungry. So I'm not going to shut the door on him being a full-time guy out. I truly don't know. But he is 25. He hasn't lit up the AHL, but he has been productive. Again, if he can translate that, and if he can, I don't know, stay hungry and realize like, hey, it's time to go. Like I'm 25. Like, my buddy Laine has had this flourishing career. Like if I'm gonna be hanging out and playing video games with Patrick Laine in his apartment in the same team as him, like I need to pick it up. So he's gonna have to pick it up. That's all I'll say on him. I have a letter grade for him if you're ready to do those.
Let's do that in just 1 second. I have one more question about Luoto, and then
Sure.
we'll give out some grades.
Okay.
He's currently a UFA. If you are Jarmo Kekalainen, do you re-sign him for next season?
I think I do. I think I re-sign him. I like his size, and he's 6'3", I believe. He kind of looks like Yager, especially when he wears number 68 when he plays over in the Swedish league, I believe. He's just a mean-looking guy, which is weird to say that's why I like him, but I think that translates too based off the one goal that he had with the Jackets this year. I'm not basing this off of a lot, Jay, but I'm seeing what he did with the Monsters. He had 25 points in 45 games. He had 10 penalty minutes, and he had a plus-minus of +1. So I'd give him another shake. Nothing more than a year or two. But it's go time for him in his career. It really is. He needs to have.
This next deal feels like a prove it contract.
Yes.
You get one more year in this organization, and if you don't show us something, then see ya.
Scram. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's give out some grades. What are you giving him?
I'll just go with a B+. I'll go with a B+ because I think he had a productive year in North America. His most productive year he's had in North America, having 25 points is previous high, I think, with Manitoba was like 9 points in a season, or 4 points, excuse me. So he's done pretty much nothing, but he's still improved from what he has done in the past. Could have done better though, so I'll go B+.
Interesting. That is way higher than I was going. I was debating.
You're gonna bury him?
I was debating him at my first D of the season. I
Sure.
think I need to see a lot more from Luoto. Again, it was another one of those low risk signings. It was, I believe, literally just he played in the Liiga last season. So he was in the NHL, and then he went back to Finland for a season. Had a monster playoffs, had like 17 points in 14 playoff games for his Liiga team, and that earned him a contract with the Blue Jackets. And I don't know, I wasn't expecting a lot from him, but I was expecting more than I got, I think. And so I'm going to give him a D+. With the understanding that, like, if we're having this conversation next year, I don't want to be saying all of the same things about how I want more from him and he has to step it up. This, to me, 25 really feels like you're starting to get to that point of, if you're not going to make it now, probably you're not going to make it, and obviously there are exceptions to that rule. Justin Danforth is an incredible exception to that rule, making his NHL debut at the age of like 29. But I think for Luoto, he's got one more season, and then it's probably back to Europe for him.
Which he might be totally fine with, for all we know. And
exactly.
he might have a long career playing hockey and make a ton of money. He just, I think, I don't know. Does it look like he's not trying out there sometimes? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but to be in the NHL, you need to have it every single night. You can't just have it for 1 or 2 games. That will get you, I think, what his ceiling is and what you and I are both saying, in the lineup from every now and then. But for the most part, yeah, not full-time guy.
No. Let's move on. Let's talk about an ex-Blue Jacket that is killing it in the playoffs right now. Would we love to see him doing it with the Blue Jackets? Absolutely. But obviously, contracts happen, money happens, bridges are burnt. We're going to talk about Sergei Bobrovsky in just a minute here on Locked On Blue Jackets. But first, I've got to tell you all about Birddogs, because these are the comfiest dang shorts in the entire world. That's all there is to it. They fit great. I struggle. I have weird proportions. I really struggle to find shorts that are both comfortable and look good and fit good. Birddogs does all of those. They're so comfy. They look great. And I would wear them every single day of my life if I could. You can wear them to the golf course. You can wear them to the beach. You can wear them as you're doing what I do and just kind of lying around the house all day. Some of them are smart enough to wear to a meeting. They've got all different kinds. They've got khakis. They've got sweatpants. They've got swim trunks now, which is super exciting. We love Birddogs here on Locked On Blue Jackets. And even better, if you go to if you go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl, you enter promo code LockedOnNHL, they are going to throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every single order, so you can look good and stay hydrated. And frankly, those are the 2 most important things in the world, I think. Once again, that is birddogs.com/lockedonnhl. Enter promo code LockedOnNHL for your free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Birddogs.com, the comfiest shorts in the whole dang world. Okay, let's talk all about Sergei Bobrovsky. Full disclosure, when we were planning this episode, I didn't really have an idea for a third segment. And Hayden was like, hey, let's talk about Bobrovsky. And I was like, I absolutely will say nice things about Sergei Bobrovsky for the next 6 to 9 minutes because I love him. He was my first real favorite Blue Jacket back in the day. And I was super sad when he left. I understand why. He wanted more money than they were going to give him. That contract still doesn't look real good, except here's my question for you. Does that albatross contract matter if the Panthers win the cup this season and Sergei Bobrovsky gets the Conn Smythe?
You win a cup, it doesn't matter the money. It does not matter the money. So many contracts happen in sports all over the place. Huge amounts of money given to athletes that had a good time, maybe in a mid-market town, and then they got the big contract for the big team, and it just doesn't turn out to anything. So if Sergei Bobrovsky is a guy that gets the huge $10 million a year contract, which is massive in the NHL, to put that into perspective, Connor McDavid, the best player in the NHL, makes, I think, between 13 and 15 million. So $10 million for a goalie is not far behind that. So just off the bat, this guy's getting paid a ton of money. And he didn't prove it early on in his career, or early on in his tenure in Florida, at least. And now here he is in the playoffs. Wasn't even the starting goalie for his team going into the playoffs. Gets in there against Boston, helps overcome a 3-1 deficit, shuts out Brad Marchand and, the biggest moments on the biggest stage in the Garden, takes it then next series to the Leafs, and then he does the same thing here to Carolina in sweep fashion. Unbelievable stat about Carolina. They've been to 3 straight conference finals since 2009.
Every single time.
Been swept in 3 straight.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh because one of the Blue
No,
Jackets
laugh
won
it
in
up.
Time, but also it's so funny. Sorry to my one Carolina Hurricanes friend who I love very dearly. I feel bad for Maggie specifically, but everything else I think is just so funny. Here's some fun context for just how good Sergei Bobrovsky has been. During the series against the Boston Bruins, he had a save percentage of .891, a sub 900 save percentage. He has been so good since then that he's currently sitting on a 935 for these playoffs. His lowest save percentage in 4 games versus Carolina was a 923. In those 4 games, he had a save percentage of 923, 1, because he had a shutout in game 3, 974, and 969. That was in that 4 overtime monster game where he played 140 minutes and made 65 saves. Bonkers.
Insane.
He is just playing out of this world good. And I think it's really, really great to see because, like I said, I've been a big Bobrovsky defender for a long, long time. And I don't think he was worth the $10 million when he signed that contract and then proceeded to not be able to stop a beach ball for his first 2 seasons in Florida. But
beach balls are tricky, by the way. They're tricky.
Yeah, they get slippery if you're not careful.
They don't fly straight through the air, they tend to wiggle around, so.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a really cool story of a guy that everyone had written off. And there's a lot of talk about if Florida does the thing, does Matthew Tkachuk get the Conn Smythe? It's so close. It's so tough to say. But to me, I give it to Sergei Bobrovsky. If Sergei Bobrovsky doesn't win the Conn Smythe after this performance, no goalie is ever going to win it ever again.
Yeah.
I want to try and pull up one last thing. I feel like it was Scott Wheeler that tweeted it about Bobrovsky. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. Honestly shocked that there's a Panthers Conn Smythe debate happening. Bobrovsky is going to save more goals above expected than any goalie since tracking began. If he doesn't win it, a goalie can't win it. With all due respect to Tkachuk, it should be a landslide. Tkachuk has been clutch, extremely so. Bobrovsky has been exponentially more so, and Tkachuk never gets his opportunities for late-game heroics, if not for his goalie saving nearly 2 goals above expected per game. Kucherov had the 2 most productive back-to-back non-Gretzky playoffs in NHL history, and neither of those seasons won him a Conn Smythe. Vasilevsky had 17 goals saved above expected when he beat out 32 points Kucherov run for it. Tkachuk isn't getting to 32 points, and Bobrovsky already has better stats than Vasilevsky in that playoff run. It's bonkers.
Yeah,
it is a record-breaking, historic playoff run that Bobrovsky is on right now, and I just think it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah, it is really cool to see. He's getting love on ESPN and SportsCenter's Twitter accounts, and not even the NBA geeks have been able to be like, not a sport. They've just been able to be. They've just gone on and been like, damn, yeah, he could guard LeBron. Like, yeah, he could. Yeah, he could. He definitely. But just that and this run, Jay, just is so cool because he's getting that like Henrik Lundqvist love. Like every goalie, like it seems like every playoffs there's that goalie that gets that love. Like, yeah, we want to go see him win the cup, or not every playoffs, but every now and then. I'm thinking about Marc-Andre Fleury, and his recently with the Knights, and Henrik Lundqvist with the Rangers a few years before that. But that's what this feels like right now with Bobrovsky. He's 34 years old. It's now or never. I mean,
I do hate that Sergei Bobrovsky is now one of those old guys without a
know.
cup TM, because in my head, he's still like 27, which I know is dumb, but sometimes players get frozen at the age they were when I got into hockey, and I'm like, oh yeah, Bobrovsky, he's what, like 27, 28? No, he's 34 years old, and he's still playing like this. It's insane.
Yeah, he's on his third team. Remember, he was on the Flyers before all of this, so it's crazy. But yeah, I want to see him keep going. I don't know, whatever it is. I don't want to jinx him. I want him to keep going. And God, yeah, I don't want the Knights to win this thing.
No,
I mean,
it's bad.
I need that. We want the Panthers. Come on.
The Panthers, it's been such a fun story. Like the Tkachuk of it all, the Bobrovsky, like the hockey in South Florida of it all. It's just been really, really fun.
Yeah.
I have one more question for you about Sergei Bobrovsky, and then we'll wrap it up. He has 2 Vezinas. If he gets this cup and the Conn Smythe, does that put him in the Hall of Fame?
I would say he's got the jersey up. I'm putting the jersey.
You're putting the jersey in the rafters?
Absolutely. If I'm the Blue Jackets, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, I think I'm doing it even without the Stanley Cup. I think just what he did, like, you're never going to have a goal. I don't know. It's more likely than not, you're never going to have a goaltender that wins 2 Vezinas while he's wearing a Blue Jackets jersey. So I think he deserves his name right up there next to Rick Nash, in my eyes. Maybe let's let him finish out his career. Let him finish out this playoff run. I don't want to call it over for him yet or anything. And the guy's crushing it right now. So yeah, let him finish out this playoff run. But even before this playoff run, I was already put 72 in the rafters.
Yeah, for sure. I believe he's the only active goaltender to have 2 Vezinas as well.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yeah. I just checked. The only active
Bassey's only got one.
Are Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Hellebuck, Fleury, Shesterkin, and they've all got 1 except for Bobrovsky, who has 2.
Amazing, right? Amazing. Yeah. Like, this guy's unbelievable. He's on the case. He is on the case.
He was off the case for a minute, but now he's back, and he is better than ever. Right. Let's wrap this up, because otherwise we will go for another 45 minutes talking about how much we love Sergei Bobrovsky, and we're right to do so. But for the interest of keeping this on time, we're going to end it there. That's all we've got for you today. Tomorrow, like I said earlier, we're going to talk about we're going to have some fun with it. Austin Matthews maybe wants out of Toronto. What should the Blue Jackets give up to get Austin Matthews? Should they give anything up? Would he fit on the team? Like, we're going to have some fun with it. We'll make up some fun trades. We've got a bunch of Twitter comments that proposed trades or things like that. And so we're going to, like I said, we'll have some fun with it. Austin Matthews, Blue Jacket, maybe. There's one really dedicated YouTube commenter who, I'm so sorry I've forgotten his name right now, but every so often he'll pop up with like, listen, Matthews is coming to Columbus in free agency in like 2026. And maybe that guy's manifested this early. So we'll see. But Austin Matthews could be a Blue Jacket. And we're going to talk about how likely it is, whether we even want that, and what we would have to give up to make that happen. I've been your host, Jay Foster. That's been my co-host, Hayden. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find Hayden at HaydenH971. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email us at lockdownbluejackets@gmail.com. If you have a SiriusXM app, you can follow us there. If you are on YouTube, you can see us there. I think I'm going to mix. I think I'm going to mix it up. I think I'm going to switch the jersey out next week. So make sure you stay tuned.
Is it because I put a jersey up? It's not because I put a jersey up, is it?
No, I just think it's time for. I think it's time for a change. We'll see how it goes.
I'm excited.
This has been Locked On Blue Jackets. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day every day. We continue to be free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.